Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Good to see you, everyone. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. See some folks coming in. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Vicky. Hope DC is treating you well. It's good down there. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Donna. Good morning. Biopsy results negative. Yay! Excellent. Good news. Good news. That is awesome. Hey, Kristen. Good morning to you. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. Great to see everybody. Good morning, good morning. Hey, good morning, Jane and John. Good to see you. Hope you're well. There in Mountain Streams Music. Hope it's good. Good morning, everybody. We'll get going in just a sec. See a couple more folks coming in. Moving along. Hello, hello. So good news about Donna. That's great. That is good news. So, our friend Cheryl, who is often here, she is asking for prayers for Colin and for Linda. They are sick. They've been diagnosed with COVID. So please keep them in your prayers, Colin and Linda, if you're the praying type. So, because we are a community that prays for one another here, so please do keep them on your hearts. All right, friends, we'll get going. It is the 30th day of March. We are at the end of March, and we're still waiting for it to warm up, at least here in the city. And I hope you are well today. Hope that this 30th day of March treats you well on this Wednesday. I want to start with this little teaching from Jesus in Matthew. This is from the 6th chapter of Matthew. He says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You know, we're in a culture and we're in a world that is programmed for more. Everything that comes to us on the shelf is either new or improved, or it's more or better, or in any number of ways. We have within us this desire for more, and in fact, it's often the desire for more that gets us into trouble. This desire, and I'm not just talking about stuff, but this notion of Jesus' teaching to say that not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and rust destroy, where thieves break in, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Now we think about this and we've kind of been conditioned to think that, like, oh, well, that means we should just reject all of the stuff, and then we should somehow just be nice to people, or just do good deeds and be a good person, and kind of moralize this. But I want to suggest to you that maybe not. That maybe it's less about that. but it's more about where our heart is and where we're willing to place our heart. This line, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. One of my favorite historical figures is a guy by the name of U.S. Grant, President Grant, General Grant. He's an incredible guy, both in his shortcomings and his abilities, and simply in his movement through life and the world. And Grant ends up, he is the victorious general of the Civil War. He is the one who holds the Union together. He is considered and drafted quickly for the presidency. Things don't go well in the presidency. He does this speaking tour through Europe, and he ends up getting kind of transfixed with the success and the things of the world. He ends up his presidency is considered riddled with corruption, that nobody seems to ever get it together, that there's and really, what president could have coming out of the American Civil War? Who all of those incredible competing forces and all the things that were going on. People say that Grant was, was kind of, his administration was riddled with corruption, but I'm not sure anyone else could have done better than Grant did, given the state of the world. But he would come out of 8 years of presidency just beleaguered, and then he would end up giving himself to and giving his confidence in this guy by the name of Ferdinand Ward. And Ferdinand Ward was essentially the Charles Ponzi of his day. He ran this elaborate financial scheme, and Grant, having come out of the presidency, having amassed a little nest egg, would end up giving all of his money to Ward, and Ward would bankrupt him financially. Sherman wrote a letter to him. Sherman and Grant were friends their whole life, and Sherman wrote a letter to him, and he said, and he was really just heartbroken over what had happened to Grant. And he said, he wrote this with sympathy and understanding to his friend. He said, Grant had aimed to rival the millionaires who would have given their all to have won any of his battles. Grant had accomplished so much. He had retained the world of. He had kept the Union together. He had been victorious on the battlefield any number of times. He had a beloved. He and his wife had a true love affair. He had served his nation again as president, and yet couldn't quite stop reaching for the ring. He couldn't quite stop reaching for the equity of being amongst the titans of industry, or the titans of the well-moneyed folk. He had struggled to really figure out that which was important to him, where his heart was. But it goes on that, he would end up nearly bankrupt as a result of this financial scheme, and yet with an incredible sense of duty and love to his wife and to his kids and to his larger family, and to the debts that he'd accrued, because he actually took out a loan in order to pay off his debts, and so he was in the hole over again. And what Grant would do, dying of cancer, in pain every day, is he would write his memoirs, which would become with some help from one of the great voices of the day in Mark Twain. He would become, which is truly one of the great memoirs, the great military memoirs of record. There's in people who study these sorts of things, the Grant's writing of his memoirs is considered not only are they beautifully written, but what the record of the history of the nation is incredible. If you ever get a chance to read his memoirs, they truly are a work of art. That what it came down to at the end of it, what it came down to in the midst of his struggling for political power and greatness, which never really materialized, or his struggling for material power and greatness, which never materialized, is that he would come back to write his story and to tell his story. And in the telling of his story, not only would he pen the last few lines of it as he lay on his deathbed and struggled in pain and hurt, but he would provide for his family, he would pay off his debts, he would do that which mattered, that he would tell his story, the story of his heart. Friends, we are all infected with the disease of more. None of us are immune from it. We all have it. Some of us master it better than others. Some of us don't. But we all have this sense of just a little bit more would be better. More would complete us. More would give us the things that we hope to be able to even, and it could be completely in some ways for others, that our desire for more could even be to provide for the people around us. At the end of the day, this call to more, whether it's more stuff or more prestige or more cachet, more power, ends up leaving us bankrupt, ends up leaving us broken, ends up leaving us in pain and hurt, ends up leaving us where moth and rust end up consuming everything, where thieves take it away. And it's just not the realm of stuff, but this call for more. I want to invite you to check it these days, because we're kind of a little bit in a scarcity mentality these days. So I think I see this a lot. I think I think we've contracted in some ways where we're not as close with maybe with some people. We're not as close with with the associations of our lives. We're contracted in a way, and in this contraction we also have this sense of like if we just get a little more, if we just get a little more, it'll be all right. We just get a little more, just accumulate a little more, it'll be okay. We just put a little more together, and it'll all work out. What Jesus asks is where our heart is. Where our heart is. And that it's not about this, are we going to pursue our heart or are we going to pursue the things of the world? It's not as clear as a dichotomy that way. Because that's not what happens to, and I talk about Grant because that's not what happens to Grant. Grant's not just like, oh, this is where my heart is, or this is. it's more the sense of letting the more creep in, letting the desire for the more to take over, letting the desire for our more, give away our treasures to thieves. Our desire for more to blind us from the corruption around us, from the things that just simply aren't right. That it's not that these things are fighting one to the other, fighting diametrically opposed. It is that there are the things of our heart. They're the things that make our hearts sing. They're the things that make our being alive and good and right. There is the sharing of our true selves and of our story. All of that is where our heart is, where God has called us to bring into the world. And that's where our treasure lies. Grant's treasure in the world, his writing of his memoirs and the publication is one of the most popular books in the 19th century, ended up being a treasure not only to the world and not only to him and his family, but it ended up being that because it was the expression of his heart. It was the expression of his heart. Friends, the call to more will always bring something shiny. It'll always bring something better than what we think we have, or what we think is in front of us, or what we think is maybe, requires us to solve something that we think is unsolvable. None of it. In the little call to more is going to bring us what our true treasure is, that resides in our heart, that has been placed there by God, that has been given to us since the foundations of the earth, and has been lifted up in us as the very being and of grace and love and truth of who we are in this world. Where your treasure is, our heart will be also. Our heart, friends, is that grand friendship of Sherman and Grant, that grand love of those two men, that grand beauty of the telling of one of the most remarkable stories of the 19th century. And it's in that alone, that all the good things that came to Grant came to him from it. Grant's best friend was Sherman, and Sherman was classically trained, and Sherman had one quote that he often offered up to the world, that he submitted to his friends and to anyone who would listen. He said it often, and it was the quote from Laertes from Shakespeare in Hamlet. As Laertes is headed off, his father is giving him some advice, and he says this. He says, "Son, to thine own self be true, for thus it follows as day follows the night. Thou can be false to no other man. Go forward to the blessing of the world." Friends, where your heart is where your truth is. It's where your treasure is. And I want to invite you to let go of the call to more, let go of the call to be more do than is, and give yourself over to your heart and work from that place, work from that story, work from that being. And in that, all good things will come. In that, in being true to yourself, you'll be false to no one else in the world. In being true to what is right and good and placed within you, you will be a child of God in the image of God. without all that rots and breaks and becomes sick and falls away. To thine own self be true, for thus it follows, as the day follows the night, that thou can be false to no other man. All right, my friends. Hope you have a great day today, and hope you are a part, live out of your heart, live and that you discover some of your treasure that is not in the shiny or is not in the call to more, but is placed within you from God who made you. All right, friends, peace and grace to you, and we will pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.